Hello and welcome. You're watching Gravitas with me, Molly Gambhir. Here's a look at what's lined up for you tonight. Our cover story tonight comes from the United States. It is about an epidemic that America is grappling with. I'm not talking about a new disease. I'm talking about an old issue that has plagued the country and claimed the lives of its people. Continues to do so. Mass shootings. How the right to carry firearms in the country is infringing on the basic right to life. There have been over 30 mass shootings in the US this year already in 23 days. The latest one has once again brought the issue to the forefront. How many more Americans need to die? Why is America so helpless before the gun lobby? How long before the basic right to live is safeguarded in the United States? That's our top focus tonight. Also on the show for you, the latest Wuhan virus numbers and the spike in hospitalizations in China sending alarm bells ringing around the world. Is China trying to infect 80% of the world? I tell you why I asked this question. Pakistan is struggling. The economic crisis is going from bad to worse, but there is no affecting the country's rich club. We take you inside North Korea and tell you about the hermit country's secret police. Why does it exist? What does it do? Does intermittent fasting help in weight loss? It is an age-old debate. A new study sheds light on whether it is effective. Do anti-depressants blunt your emotions? Researchers talk about how the medication impacts you. We tell you more. Yesterday, it was Louisiana. On Saturday, it was California, also Georgia. On the 18th, it was Virginia. 17th, Texas. 16th, Florida and California. There have been at least 10 cases of mass shootings in the U.S. in just the last 7 days, and over 30 so far in 2023. The total last year stood at 648. That's almost 2 every day. At least 21 of these incidents had 5 or more victims. This is the state of the United States of America. This is the state of the American dream. If you ask me, this dream seems to have become more of a dread. Because in the world's oldest democracy, people are dying by random guns because their right to life has been threatened by the right to bear arms. In which other country does this happen? None. This is an American epidemic. And it's beyond the Wild West. Those people who died in Los Angeles over the weekend had gone out to have a good time. They were celebrating the Chinese Lunar New Year. There was a festive feeling in the air before the air was colored with blood and the sound of joy drowned by screaming voices.
Today was supposed to be a happy, nice day for everyone to enjoy, but stuff happens, so a lot of people can't enjoy the situation now, and it's not right for the other people not to enjoy, but what can we do?
It is a valid question. What do you do when the United States of America fails to keep Americans alive? Last Monday, there was another mass shooting in California. 6 people were killed by a gunman. Among the dead was a 16-year-old and her 10-month-old child. The teen mother was trying to run away from the shooter. He caught up with her, stood over her, and fired multiple rounds into her skull. What kind of a monster kills an infant and her mother? And what kind of a country arms such a monster? Our hearts really go out to these people, their families. You know, none of this is their fault. It is the failure of the American administration, the leaders of the country. American presidents, one after another, have failed to ensure something as basic as safety. And they want us to believe that America is civilized. The obvious question here is why? It's all about the money. Will you believe me if I told you that in the US, the guns and ammunition manufacturing industry alone is worth nearly $21 billion? One of the gun lobby groups, in fact, claims that in 2021, the industry was responsible for as much as $70.52 billion in total economic activity and $7.86 billion in taxes. Can you imagine the kind of money we are talking about? The people profiting from this business happen to be among the country's most powerful, the most influential. It is them who really run the show in Washington, not the White House, not those working out of the Capitol. Have you heard of the NRA, or the National Rifle Association? Again, a gun lobby group. This is what the group boasts about on its website. As former Clinton spokesman said, let me make one small vote for the NRA. They are good citizens. They call their congressmen. They write, they vote, they contribute, and they get what they want over time. This group has officially set aside $3 million to influence gun policy. Off the paper, though, the NRA spent around $250 million in 2020 alone. Where did all the money go? A lot of it in the pockets of American lawmakers. NRA funds are difficult to track, but here is a fact. The NRA has managed to cash wash leaders, bribe them. What it has also done is brainwash the public. The people of America have been made to believe that the archaic, outdated, and preposterous Second Amendment is still relevant. The Second Amendment is what arms Americans with the right to carry firearms, the right to walk into a dance studio in Los Angeles and kill people, and then drive for 20 minutes to another neighborhood and try and attack people there as well. Tell me one thing, what business did a 72-year-old man have in carrying a pistol? The Second Amendment says a well-regulated militia, being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Where does this leave the police? In other countries, it is the police that is responsible for the security of a state. In America, that role has been carelessly distributed. The state has armed everyone, and the state's police is too scared to enter a crime scene. When an armed monster goes rogue, Uvalde, for example, there are 120 guns for every 100 Americans. And these are just the registered weapons. Just in case you have any doubt, no other country has more civilians than has more guns than people. This bizarre number is exclusively American. In America, citizens have multiple guns. It's a one-of-a-kind arms race. And the ones losing this race are Americans and Americans alone. They are losing their sons, their daughters, parents and partners. Like I was telling you, this right to carry firearms has become a threat to the universal right to life. Let me now make you meet Jose. This young boy had great plans for his life. He wanted to be a police officer when he grew up. He wanted to protect the people. Jose's family says the brave boy would always take care of his baby brother and his younger sister. But a shooter at Uvalde killed Jose. His life was cut short at 10 years old. He never got to live that dream of becoming a police officer or see his younger sister off to her prom. You know, it's very easy for the US president to order the flag to be lowered and flown at half-staff. But how does it in any way protect more people from meeting the same fate? From becoming victims of mass shootings, from dying so young? Well, it doesn't. What America needs is gun control. What the US needs is action. And from where I am sitting, it does not look like the Biden administration has what it takes for action. And as the American dream collapses, thousands of miles away in China, the Chinese dream is in peril as well. Xi Jinping's dream of rejuvenation and prosperity. Guess what? It is facing a dire threat from the Wuhan virus. A few days back, one report said that since the 1st of January, this angel of death killed over 60,000 people. And now new figures have emerged. They say over 13,000 more people died of this virus last week. I repeat, 13,000 deaths in just 7 days. Who were these people? Reports say most of them were critical patients at hospitals, patients like these, gasping for breath, fighting for their life in overcrowded emergency wards. Most of them could not survive the virus. And they are being humiliated in death as well. Look at how China is classifying the deaths. The Chinese Center for Disease Control and Prevention has said that only 681 hospitalized patients died of respiratory failure caused by the coronavirus infection, and almost 11,977 people had died of other diseases combined with an infection over the period. That is 12,658 people. And what about the remaining 342 people? How did they die? Now this, China has not answered. But it has offered some other figures. Figures like these. China says that 80% of its population has had COVID-19. 80% of the population, that is 8 in every 10 people in the country, apparently already infected with the Wuhan virus. And this is according to whom? This man, Wu Zhongyue, the chief epidemiologist of China's Center for Disease Control and Prevention. His claim comes amid concerns that the current travel rush in China could spread the virus to the countryside and cause a second wave of infections. Wu Zhongyue says this scenario is unlikely as most people have already been infected. Now, I don't want to sound cynical, but you have to take his claims with a pinch of salt. Because just last month, the same health expert had said that the second wave will be worse than the first one, that millions of Chinese citizens traveling home will take the virus along with them and cause outbreaks in rural China. And a month on, Zhongyue says the second wave will be less severe. Is he saying this under pressure? Has he been pulled up by the CCP? Has he been asked to play down the severity of this virus so that the Chinese citizens celebrating Lunar New Year do not panic? It certainly seems like it. Because the celebrations are in full swing this time. Look at these images. They are from Hong Kong. These are Chinese worshippers burning incense sticks at a Taoist temple, throwing all caution away into thin air. Are they not worried about the Wuhan virus? Well, they say their belief in their God is more important. These are people in atheist China talking. You have to listen to this.
People are still a social animals, so we like to be together, I think. And for this event, this is the show for our belief to the God. So this is more important for us.
And there are celebrations in Beijing as well. Look at these images. Thousands here are holding annual rituals they could not conduct in the last 3 years. And this time they have crowded the iconic Lama temple in Beijing to pray for the health and well-being of their loved ones.
The past 2 years were tough for many people because of the pandemic. In everyone's lifetime, we will encounter many difficult times. We need to work hard to solve these problems and keep going. I hope we can have a better future and everyone can have a better life.
We hope that their prayers work. If not for their sake, then for the rest of the world, because it seems that after letting the virus infect 80% of its people, Chinese authorities could end up infecting 80% of the world. There have been warnings to this end, and if we go by the numbers of Chinese citizens traveling abroad, this could very well be the case, especially in Thailand. Reports say Thailand will see a 101% rise in Chinese tourists this year, 101% rise. Aren't the authorities worried that these tourists may bring the virus with them? Not really. The Deputy Prime Minister of Thailand himself, remember, went to welcome the first batch of tourists from China. Now, locals in Thai cities say that they see Chinese tourists coming as a good sign. How is it a good sign, you ask? Because they apparently bring good money. Listen to this.
Well, I want Chinese tourists back because they generate more income for me. They like to do all sorts of water sports, so I definitely want them back. I'm ready to welcome Chinese tourists. I'm ready because with them here, it's good money.
When Chinese tour groups come, they order quite a lot. And I miss that momentum we used to have 4 years ago.
Now, we get that Thai tourism has suffered as a result of the Wuhan virus pandemic. But to say that the Chinese bring good money and hence should be allowed to enter Thailand is problematic to say the least. This virus is unpredictable. It keeps evolving, keeps mutating into lethal variants. The ongoing spike in China proves this. Now that Chinese tourists are traveling abroad, there is no saying how many of them are taking the virus along with them. And our next story is about Pakistan. A story of how two different worlds exist within the Pakistani society. Two starkly different worlds with starkly different lifestyles and starkly different opportunities. The first world comprises of the rich, Pakistan's exclusive and powerful elite. You know, the corporate honchos, the feudal landlords, the army generals, and the politicians. They all live within a compact which allows wealth, it allows power to perpetuate over generations and keep the common man out. In fact, many say that this elite has taken Pakistan from being an Islamic republic to 1% republic. Meaning opportunities, power and wealth in the country are limited to the top 1% of the people. The remaining 99% form the other world. A world of violent repression, curtailing of human rights, unwarranted detentions, arbitrary arrests. The inhabitants of this world are people with low to no representation. They live in a completely different country with literacy levels, living standards, health facilities being poles apart from the other world I just mentioned. Now, why am I telling you all of this? Because of certain developments in Pakistan. The first development concerns Pakistan's economy. It's going from bad to worse, almost scraping at the bottom of the barrel. Have a look at this report. It says Pakistan's foreign reserves have slipped to $4.3 billion. This is a whole new low. And what's worse is, this money is enough to cover only 3 weeks of imports. Just so you know how less this money is, India has approximately $572 billion in its foreign reserves. This number is from last week, and it is the highest ever since August last year. Since then, the foreign reserves have jumped a colossal $10.4 billion. I repeat, they have increased by $10.4 billion. This increase itself is way more important, way more than the entire amount left in Pakistan's foreign reserves, way more than the amount left in Pakistan's foreign reserves. And this is embarrassing, to say the least. What's worse, the possibility of Pakistan being able to reinforce its foreign reserves is also next to impossible. Remittances to the country are at an all-time low, and the national debt is only soaring. Islamabad has to repay billions of dollars in loans that it took from China, the Arab world, and Western banks. It has to do that, but how will it do it? Only God knows. Meanwhile, look at what Pakistan's rich are doing. Amid this serious economic crunch, they are busy buying luxury cars, importing them from abroad, in fact. The report on your screen narrates the story. It says during the last 6 months, Pakistan spent $1.2 billion on imports of luxury cars, high-end electric vehicles and spare parts. Now, if we break the overall figure down, $772.5 million were spent on importing buses, trucks, and other heavy vehicles, while $498 million were spent on importing motor cars. $27.6 million spent on importing motorcycles. Now, here's the thing. Pakistan is facing an acute shortage of dollars. It has less than 4.3 billion left in its foreign reserves. Yet, the country's elite are spending enormously on luxury vehicles. And this only tells you about their misplaced priorities. The list consists of Pakistani businessmen as well as the country's army generals, both current and ex. Have a look at this report. Dawn carried this last year. It says ex-military officials in Pakistan were allowed import of tax-free bulletproof vehicles. This entire episode tells you how Pakistan's rich and elite are still living a life of luxury as the country struggles to pay its debts. Who is to blame for this? In one word, Pakistan. The country is built on a system where the rich just keep getting richer and the poor keep getting poorer, negating the entire idea of equal distribution of wealth. The rich misuse the state policies as much as they can. They either evade the taxes or they pay a meager amount, which in no way corresponds to their annual income. And this has been confirmed by recent studies. Studies such as these. It says nowhere in the world is tax evasion as prominent as it is in today's Pakistan. It says the country loses around 310 billion each year due to tax evasion by just 5 sectors in the country. And one can only imagine how much the overall losses amount to. My point here is simple. This gap between the rich and the poor, this divide between the elite and downtrodden, is costing Pakistan dear. The fall in the country's forex reserves is just the beginning. Who knows what tragedy awaits the country next? There was a time when Somalia was known for its beauty, its culture. Tourists flocked to Somalia for its pristine beaches. But those days are gone. The civil war brought the country to ruins. Somalia is now known for its poverty, hunger, droughts, and insurgency. For 7 years now, the Al-Qaeda-linked Al-Shabaab group has wreaked havoc in Somalia, carrying out bombings and gun attacks. And in the latest incident, the terrorist group set off a bomb and stormed a government building in Somalia's capital. 6 civilians have lost their lives. Our next report telling you more.
On Sunday, Somali government forces ended an over 5-hour-long siege by Al-Shabaab. The terrorists charged into the neighborhood of the mayor's office in Mogadishu. The attack started with an explosion. The gunmen then stormed the building. They engaged in a firefight with security forces. 6 civilians were killed in the exchange. 4 others were injured. Security forces shot dead 6 of the terrorists. This was just the latest incident. On Friday, Al-Shabaab stormed a Somali government military base near the central Somali town of Galkad. The government says 7 Somali soldiers were killed in the attack, but the militant group claims the death toll is 159. The terrorists exploded car bombs and fired weapons. They were eventually repelled as the security forces took down 30 of them. US Africa Command is calling the incident a collective self-defense strike. The base is located about 60 kilometers north of the capital Mogadishu. Government forces and allied clan militias had saved it from the Al-Shabaab's control in October. Al-Shabaab means the youth in Arabic, and standing true to its name, the terror group emerged as the radical youth wing of Somalia's Union of Islamic Courts. The Islamic Courts controlled Mogadishu in 2006 before being forced out by Ethiopian forces. Backed by the Al-Qaeda, the terror group has been trying to topple Somalia's government ever since. It advocates the Saudi-inspired Wahhabi version of Islam. While most Somalis are Sufis, it has imposed a strict version of Sharia in areas under its control. Under its rule, women accused of adultery are stoned to death. People who are caught stealing are maimed. Their hands are cut off. Terrorists torch people's houses, destroy wells in the drought-stricken country, and kill civilians on their whims. Ever since 2012, the Somali government has been trying to reclaim the areas under terrorist control. It is slowly inching towards stability. It is expanding its offensive against the group into the country's south. According to reports, regional and Somalia federal forces launched attacks on Al-Shabaab on Saturday. They took control of the town of Jana Kabdal. Al-Shabaab has also stepped up its attacks. Bombings are becoming increasingly common in Somalia, and despite the government's attempt, the terror group's courts are gaining acceptance in some towns and villages. Just imagine some Somalis are more willing to go to terrorists for judgment, the same people who stone women to death and butcher petty thieves. Why? The government has failed to win the trust of the people. There is widespread belief that federal and regional governments do not dispense justice. Weak governance, terrorism, corruption has led to chaos in Somalia. There is a food crisis. More than 200,000 Somalis are suffering from catastrophic food shortages. Hundreds of children have died in care centers due to hunger and malnutrition. Central parts of the country are on the brink of famine. Terror attacks are on the rise. Droughts have become prevalent. The once beautiful country is now one of the poorest nations in the Horn of Africa.
Let's now talk about a country about which very little is known. North Korea, you see, has always been a mysterious place. Not much data about the country's growth comes out, about the new technologies. The dictatorship rules with iron fist over its people. This new report by the Database Center for North Korean Human Rights in Seoul, compiled with the accounts of the North's defectors, highlights how the country's supreme leader, Kim Jong-un, uses a secret force to keep people in line with Pyongyang ideology. Let me tell you about the secret police now. The report talks about this police force in North Korea, the non-socialist group, which operates as a hidden tool and is used by the government not only for surveillance, but also to quell any iota of foreign influence that the citizens might have, which can somehow undermine the supreme leader's authority. But what exactly are these issues that Kim Jong-un sees as foreign influence? Would you believe me if I said that this is all about getting a haircut not approved by the government? It's about having a group to celebrate a birthday party, watching a foreign movie? And these are just some of the things, among many others, which are seen as outside influence by Pyongyang. And the non-socialist group is ready everywhere, every time, to punish the citizens for these so-called crimes. Now, I want to ask you, can you imagine living in a country where you are being told what to wear, what music to listen to, what movies to watch, what kind of a haircut to get? And if you do not obey the suggestions or the rules, you might get demoted at your workplace. You might get demoted at your workplace or get sent to a labor camp where you will be re-educated, or worse, you might be executed. Well, these are some of the punishments that the citizens of North Korea face if they are found violating the guidelines that have been issued. And in this report, the defectors explain how this moral police works. In one of the techniques, it cuts off electricity in the houses where people are suspected of watching a banned DVD or videotape, thus preventing them from removing it from the player and concealing it. And those who are found guilty of crimes are punished accordingly, and in some extreme cases, that punishment is execution of the guilty by Kim Jong-un's firing squad. But to show that everything is in order, the state in most cases issues proclamations to the general public and simply announces eradication of non-socialist and anti-socialist phenomena. The proclamations usually cover the entirety of non-socialist and anti-socialist acts, such as the ban on private commercial activities, prohibition of smuggling in, watching or distributing impure video recordings, quote unquote, and compliance with the socialist style attire. And these orders are issued by the Ministry of Social Security of North Korea. Now, there is one question which remains unanswered. What exactly led to the establishment of such a force to censor and surveil the citizens? The answer lies in going back to the 1980s, when China, which happens to share the border with North Korea along with Russia, opened itself to the world in the late 1980s, and soon after then the Soviet Union bloc fell. All these developments pushed Pyongyang into survival mode, which was threatened by these changes in its neighborhood, and hence brought the non-socialist force to consolidate the position of its rulers, advising the citizens against any non-societal behavior and eventually designating those non-threatening activities as crimes and putting the entire country under the grip of rulers and the moral police. Let me now ask you a question. Would you call yourself superstitious? Do you believe in lucky charms, bad omens, and dare I say it, curses? You might have your doubts about it, but people around the world are talking about a curse. I'm talking about the Netflix curse. What exactly is this? Less than 2 weeks ago, the OTT platform released a docuseries titled Breakpoint. The series features a number of underdog tennis stars all around the world. It closely captures them competing in Grand Slams and tournaments in the Women's Tennis Association and the ATP Tours. It features the ups and downs of many players all through the 2022 season. Experts say that the world of professional tennis is undergoing a transition. The OGs and legends are retiring. A younger generation of tennis players is taking over, and the series aims to capture this very change. The series showcases the blood, sweat, and smash rackets that go into becoming a star player. But there has been a jarring observation. Felix Auger-Aliassime just faced a 4th round loss at the Australian Open, and with that, the term Netflix curse has gone viral. The hashtag has been trending. Twitter users are writing about the Netflix curse now being complete. And why is that? Now let me explain. None of the stars featured in Netflix's new docuseries have made it through to the second week in Melbourne. That is what this is all about. Player after player crashed out of the tournament. Maria Sakkari, Taylor Fritz, Casper Ruud, Matteo Berrettini, all have been eliminated from the first Grand Slam of the year. Before the Melbourne Slam even started, 3 players withdrew due to injuries. I am talking about Nick Kyrgios, fellow Aussie Ilya Tomljanovic, and Spain's Paula Badosa. All of these players have made it to the world's top 10 at some point of their careers. They have all been intimately featured on Netflix's show, but none of them made it to the quarterfinals at the Australian Open. Such poor showing from the stars has fanned the idea of a Netflix curse. People are speculating that the series is somehow connected to the players. And speaking earlier this week, Auger-Aliassime laughed off the entire idea. Netflix's UK and Ireland Twitter account also tweeted that all of it was purely a coincidence. Now, I am not saying there is a curse, but think about it. It's almost uncanny that every single player on the show has not performed well. All 10 of them are now out of the tournament. What were the odds? Fans are convinced. They think players featured in the docuseries are jinxed. Till Friday, Sakkari was one of the 2 survivors of the dreaded Netflix curse, but she could not escape its clutches as she lost against Zhu Lin. It's highly unlikely that a curse exists in the world of sports, but it seems like sports fans love to concoct and discuss them, because this is not the first time. Take the case of Bambino, for example. Boston Red Sox baseball club endured a long dry spell after Babe Ruth was traded to the New York Yankees in 1920. And by long, I mean 84 years long. The Red Sox were not able to win a single world championship until 2004. Such trades of players are frequent in baseball, but fans believe this one began the curse of the Bambino. Some diehards even said Babe Ruth's ghost winked at them when Red Sox finally won the World Series in the year 2004. Now, I am not asking you to believe on a curse that makes players lose or a ghost who winks at baseball fans, but netizens for sure know how to keep themselves entertained, even if their favorite players fail to deliver on the field. Let me now talk to you about an issue that has been at the center of a lot of debate recently. I'm not talking about any new workplace trend or a new fashion trend. I am talking about a diet trend. You must have heard about the term intermittent fasting. Basically, the practice of having long gaps between your meals. But does it really work? How effective is it really when it comes to your weight loss journey? This has been discussed time and again. And now there is a new study which basically says that your weight is not as influenced by the timing of your meals as it has been thought so far. This was published in the Journal of the American Heart Association. 547 people participated in this study. The study monitored their portion sizes, their eating times. Not just that, it also looked at their health data, their weight. And this was done over a period of 6 years. What they found was that there was no link between their weight and an interval of the day in which the food was consumed. Now that is interesting because intermittent fasting is all about eating times, and controlling eating times has been a popular trend to lose weight. In fact, it was found that smaller meals were associated with weight loss, but at the same time, it's not all black and white. The findings cannot be taken as the ultimate answer in this debate over intermittent fasting and what kind of diet trends really work. There are several factors at play, you see, like stress, the environment that people work in, and in order to better understand the impact of the meal timings on the weight loss journey, there is also a need to look into all of these factors. So what is the answer then? Basically, there is no one-size-fits-all approach. For some people, it can help to give intermittent fasting a shot when it comes to taking note of personal tendencies. But for it to show long-term changes, some people might not be able to carry on with it for long. It also all depends on your lifestyle. We all have different lifestyles, different environments in which we work, which means there is no one common answer or rule that everybody can follow. It's not as easy as that. Your doctor is the right person to speak to. Your doctor can tell you what works best for you, what your diet chart and exercise frequency should be looking like. The food that you are eating has to be nutritious at the end of the day. What works for one person will not necessarily work for you at the end of the day. It's all about doing what's working best for your body and mind without pushing yourself, without additional stress. Eating healthy is of utmost importance. I want to now talk to you about an issue that deserves to be spoken about day in and day out. I'm talking about mental health and the need to protect it. During the year 2020, when the pandemic started altering just about every aspect of our lives, there was something else that we saw changing. It was the way in which the issue of mental health was being discussed. And as the lockdowns became the norm, amid the doom and gloom, more and more people started talking about the importance of protecting one's mental health. It has been an issue that has been discussed before the pandemic started as well. But mental health as an issue started getting the importance that it deserved only after COVID-19 struck. And over the last few years, there have been studies, inputs, reports about the issue. Anxiety and depression started becoming the top issues of discussion. And tonight, there is a new study I want to tell you about. It looks at how common antidepressants work. It delves into the possible side effects of the antidepressants. The research was published in the journal Neuropsychoamalgology. Let me first tell you about the antidepressants I'm talking about. They are widely used for severe cases or for persistent ones. They are called selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, SSRIs. How do they work? They target serotonin. Serotonin has been called the pleasure chemical. It basically carries messages between the nerve cells in the brain. This group of antidepressants has a widely reported side effect. It is called blunting. Basically, those who consume the drug feel emotionally dull. They no longer find things as pleasurable as they used to. According to the researchers, 40 to 60% of the patients taking SSRIs are believed to experience this side effect. Let me quote from what the senior author of the study from the University of Cambridge in the UK has said. Emotional blunting is a common side effect of SSRI antidepressants. In a way, this may be in part how they work. They take away some of the emotional pain that people who experience depression feel. But unfortunately, it seems that they also take away some of the enjoyment from our study. We can now see that this is because they become less sensitive to rewards, which provide important feedback. The research shows that the drugs impact reinforcement learning. It is an important process that allows us to learn from our environment. Now, let me remind you here, whether or not you should be using antidepressants, the extent to which they should be used, these are all questions that your doctor will help you with. And let me also remind you here that protecting your mental health is of utmost importance. If there's anything that comes in the way of doing that, it's just not worth it. Let's now tell you what else made news around the world. Time for Gravitas Global Headlines.
Germany says it will not block Poland from sending its 2 Leopard tanks to Ukraine. Big news for Kiev as it calls for more heavy weaponry to fight Russian offensive. Apple Inc. aims to increase production in India. Trade Minister Piyush Goyal says the Silicon Valley giant wants India to account for 25% of total production, a big jump from the current 5 to 7% numbers. Anti-deforestation raids underway in the Amazon rainforests in Brazil. Brazilian President Lula da Silva vowed to end surging destruction inherited from his predecessor Jair Bolsonaro. Germany's antitrust watchdog launches an investigation into PayPal to examine if the US online payment giant was using its dominance to restrict competition. Streaming giant Spotify next in line to lay off employees. CEO announces the company will cut 6% of its workforce. That's some 600 workers. Peruvian police fired tear gas to disperse crowds of demonstrators rallying for the release of over 200 people detained at a university campus. Demonstrators raised slogans calling the police murderers. The police had arrested 205 people on the campus. Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida says his country is currently facing the severest security environment in the region since the end of World War II. He pledged to bolster military capacity under a newly adopted security strategy over the next 5 years and tackle rapidly declining births so the country can sustain national strength. Kishida's government in December adopted key security and defense reforms, including a counter-strike capability. But according to the government, the current deployment of missile interceptors is insufficient to defend it from rapid weapons advancement in China and North Korea. Israel Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has dropped top minister Aryeh Deri from his cabinet. This after a Supreme Court ruling against Deri's appointment, which has shaken the nascent cabinet. Deri was appointed Health and Interior Minister last month as part of a coalition deal following Israel's November 1st elections. Djokovic booked his spot in the quarterfinals of the Australian Open following a 6-2, 6-1, 6-2 win over Alex de Minaur. The record 9-time champion will next play world number 6 Andrei Rublev for a place in the Final Four. Meanwhile, in the women's draw, world number 4 Caroline Garcia became the latest top seed to suffer an early exit at Melbourne Park, as the WTA Finals champion lost her fourth-round match against Poland's Magda Linette, 6-7, 4-6.
On that note, it's a wrap on this edition of Gravitas. We're leaving you with Gravitas images. Thanks very much for watching.